Welcome to my Shyvana top mini guide. I'm going to release a more comprehensive one, but I'm going to be moving to Florida in about 3 days. So by the time you see this, I'll be on my way to Florida. Once I get there, I'll eventually do an extremely comprehensive guide. But this is kind of what I'm releasing for now. A lot of people have been asking for it, and I think it's a good time to do it. I stream on Twitch. You'll see a link in the description and the comments at Shyvana Wave. I hope you guys enjoy, and we're going to have a mini laning breakdown. We're going to have an item guide and a rune guide. Alright, what's up guys? This is going to be the beginning of my lane guide. I'm going to go through a laning phase against a D1 Aatrox, where I did, from my understanding of my rank, I'm a D2 60 LP, that I think I did everything right. So I'm recording with my webcam over a game, so this was from one of my streams, but clearly, you know, my webcam's over it, right? So let's hop right in it. First, big thing, you never want to walk up to the wave level 1. You want to let the minions get low HP and last hit them with your E. So I'm getting ready to do this. Worst case scenario, I got level 2 ganked by a Twitch. I immediately ghost without second thought, knowing he's going to all-in me. Run backwards. And so this gives you an example of, we're starting out lane from half health, right? So our main goal is to miss EXP, or well, not miss EXP, to miss minion kills to survive, right? So you'll notice I don't actually end up getting a lot of minions here. I get whatever I can with E while staying the maximum range away from my enemy. Usually I would go up and hit the occasional minion when it seems like I have time for it. But in this situation at half health, I think this is a great example of how you can guaranteed survive and scale, like no matter the scenario. So what ends up happening here is we're going to let the wave slow push into us, and this allows us to farm at turret for the first 4 levels without actually having any risk of death. We're going to miss roughly about 6 minions, 5 minions, but overall that's not actually a big deal. You'll come to see why it's not a big deal. See, he's going extremely aggressive. We have to watch out for that. I was ready. I procced my W to get out of Aatrox W. Now this is important right here, what you're seeing, this gigantic wave, right? We actually started topside, and you always have your jungler leash. If they'll listen to you, make them start whatever side you're on. Because you'll notice how passive we're playing. We have this giant wave under turret. Aatrox went to invade our jungler. So if you see my blue buff, everything's dead right there. That's because I made my jungler start topside. But had I not made my jungler start topside, Aatrox would have went in and invaded right when he was doing blue buff and killed him, and your jungler would have wanted to quit the game. Now, in high elo, this happens pretty much 100% of the time that you play the strategy. So you must get them to leash. Well, you leash them, but make sure they start on your side. So this is what's called the bounce back. You had a large wave crash into your turret, and so now you're going to have a large wave pushing into them. This is where things start to get interesting, to where you're really going to have to start playing mechanically. You want to try to bait out the enemy's spells and burst them and disengage, because we cannot all in at this point, but we can do a quick burst and actually kite him out. So you see, I dodge his abilities, I made him waste some spells, I gave him a burst, and I disengage, and I play around my minions. Having a minion advantage is so extremely important, because you may not notice it. See, I kill him with the second burst, right? But look how much damage the minions do. Twitch is going to show up and gank me right here. But watch how I use the minions in vision. He wards that bush, so I break line of sight, make him go melee. He's tanking the minions. Boom. We've just set up the rest of the game. Now, if we go back real quick, I want to show some very important things. So right here, we have about a 4 minion advantage. That's going to add up to roughly hitting this Aatrox with the equivalent of 2 E's. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but that's the difference in winning and losing a fight. So I dodge his spell, and he's tanking about 5 minions when he tries to fight me right here. Look at the minions. Perfect. And now, because we just bursted him once and we used the minions correctly, we can look to one-shot him on his next engage. So I read his EQ aggressively at me, and rather than running, I walked into it and killed him. And I know in my mind that Twitch is looking to gank me right here, because when the wave is like this, they're looking to gank. But if they try to fight you in the minions, you can easily kill them. So we break line of sight, minions are attacking him. We use our combos correctly, auto E, auto Q, boom, just like that. Laning is now set up. Now we are at the level 6 point. This is where I start a lot of my videos. This is an example of starting as worse off as we possibly could and ending as good as we possibly could. And this is, keep in mind, that Aatrox was D1 if I remember correctly. The Twitch was D1. So I guarantee you this will work in your ranks too. I'm going to show you how to turret dive on AP Shyvana. So first off, you're going to want to poke your enemy with an E, as we'll see here, and then we'll set up the full burst right after. So we get one nice poke there. Kite him out for our next E. Okay, so first off, you're going to want to open with R, auto EQ. Just like that, see? Insane burst with PTA. Now there's a trick to this. We're going to corral him to the center of the turret going right and left, and then E him and Q the turret. With the new Shyvana Q fix, you can actually Q the turret and get an insane reach and hit everything in front of you. And it's a really easy way to kill people hiding behind their turrets because they never really expect this. And it almost always hits as long as they're actually standing behind the turret. Boom, just like that. We run out.
Perfect.
Pretty much full health. We did that at level 6. We could have even done it with a little bit less AP. You know, maybe we had poked Aatrox down a little bit more before we attempted that, but that will almost always work. All right, here's an example of how oppressive Shyvana poke can be. So we're going to start out with the E poke, Q him, you know, pop PTA, kind of back off. You don't want to overextend too much. We saw our E's coming back up, so we throw another. Now we're going to Q the wave as much as we can, as many autos as we can, to actually extend our dragon, because as long as dragon goes, the more E's we actually get to throw. So we're going to look max range for another one. Got it. Now we're going to look to Q the minions because we want another E. So we got to spam as many autos and Qs in these minions as we can. So we ended up getting another E off. And if we had not attacked minions, we probably would have got 2 less E's, which makes all the difference, guys. So make sure you're Qing the minions. And you'll notice this guy has just been absolutely poked to death. And this is how I like to play AP Shyvana. So we just kite them out, wait for our next poke cooldown. Really make sure the enemy can't even play against us. Alright guys, let me show you an interesting trick. This is when you're waiting for an enemy to crash the wave. You can stand right over here behind the wall and actually alt over the wall and EQ them. So this works quite often. You can get a lot of free kills like this, and if not, you set up like the next few minutes of lane to be in your advantage. You'll notice I actually force Aatrox to run the other way. This is D1. He was smarter than most players I'm used to. But my jungler was around and he ran to the completely wrong area. So we just wait, hit him with the E, and he's dead. But like I said, usually you want to jump right onto him, auto EQ them, and then chase them across lane, and you'll get a whole nother E by the time they escape, and you'll usually be able to kill them. Now let's move on to the items. To start out, I'm going to go through the item guide for AP. AP is my favorite build. It's the thing I do most of the time. This is currently my favorite build. Remember, if I don't have a 6th item and stone plate's not already on there, the 6th item is always going to be stone plate. And if you want to sell boots for the AP, you're going to put on a death cap, so it ends up looking like that, right? Let me put the boots back on there. But to start out, this is my favorite build. When you're playing Night Harvester, you rush Night Harvester, starting out with Fiendish Codex. So you're going to see a lot of Night Harvester builds on here. Build order is going to end up looking generally like this. You always want to start D-Shield. D-Shield is the most gold efficient item in the game. Well, for our situation, it's the most ideal. But we rush Night Harvester. We're going to be building full Magic Pen. The full Magic Pen build is just insane right now, guys. I've been playing this in D2. I have 60 LP. I have roughly a 60+% win rate in my match history, somewhere from 60 to 65%. Playing pretty much this build every single game. Now, I fucking love this build. I really do. I recommend you all try it before you wonder why I play such a thing. and I've had great success even up into D2 games, D1 games, so it really does work. Now we got off-tank burst. This is when your team doesn't really have a tank. You still want to go AP and kind of burst that back line. There's a decent amount of squishies, yet you have to verse a tank top lane. So the demonic embrace comes in really valuable. You end up with something around like 3,600 health early game. You have 2 gigantic shields and then a force of nature to finish it off. You probably can sell boots for Rabadons, right? You're going to want to have magic pen boots most likely after this Night Harvester. We've never built boots before Night Harvester, guys. Always want to rush the Night Harvester ASAP because it has 25 ability haste and it's just really OP early game. Here we have a squishier version of the versing a tank build. We have the Void Staff before the Demonic Embrace. We finished that off with the Stone Plate. Overall, really solid build. This is when you have a tank jungler, tank enemy top laner, yet you still want to do a lot of damage. Now this is really interesting. We have a full pen build right here. This is kind of crazy. You're going to need Transcendence in the haste rune because you won't have that much ability haste. But what you do have is a shitload of damage. This is what you want to play into something that's 5 squishies on the enemy comp. You really only need to hit 1 good E in a team fight to win the team fight. You'll probably be able to throw around 4 E's, 3, somewhere from between 3 or 4 depending on how much you auto attack. But you don't need to actually throw that many because they're going to be doing about 1,000 damage, around 900. Once you finish the build out, it's just crazy. And these builds, you'll notice, really power spike at 3 items. This one is as much magic pen and burst as you could possibly get in 3 items. Now let's go on to something a bit more interesting. This is Confusing DPS, I've titled this. Frostfire, Demonic Embrace, Abyssal Mask, Void Staff, Stone Plate. This is to max out magic pen, tankiness, and your overall insane base stats. So you're going to jump onto someone, hit him with a PTA or a grasp. It's just going to do crazy amounts of damage, and as the fight goes on, they're going to have almost no MR. Now this is a really fun build. If you're new to Shyvana and you're just wondering, well, what the fuck do I play? This all seems very specific. Try this one out. This is my hybrid tank build. This is what I play when I feel like relaxing. It's not that hard to do, and yet you do insane damage, insanely tanky. It's Frostfire, Demonic, Titanic Hydra, Stoneplate, Sterix. At just 3 items, these 3 items, you're going to be an absolute monster. You're stacking health. These are 2 health scaling items. This gives you extra burst. They all give you extra burst. Meanwhile, you're insanely tanky. I recommend always taking conditioning and overgrowth secondary when running this build. And the Stone Plate just finishes off and really caps out your health and makes you feel quite unkillable. Now this, I don't play this build as much anymore. This is really fun though. If you've never tried something out like this, I definitely suggest you do it in like a normal game. If you just want to have some fun and one-shot some people. This build is to actually one-shot. So if you're looking for a legitimate single E kill, you can play this with First Strike or Dark Harvest and you will literally make the enemy disappear off your screen. Keep in mind, you're so squishy that you're only going to be ulting in place and never into the enemy when running this build or most Night Harvester ones. Now, as the final build, we have the old Riftmaker special. We got Riftmaker, Cosmic Drive, Demonic Embrace, Void Staff, Death Cap. You're probably going to want to run this with PTA or Conquer or Grasp, something to give you a little bit more sustained damage. This is really powerful because you get an insane amount of ability haste, tank melt with the Riftmaker. Your E is just going to be melting with Demonic Embrace and all this extra AP, and then we have a ton of Magic Pen and AP stacked out to finish the build. Alright, now for the AD. This is my favorite AD build we got right here. Start out with Steel Caps, into the Sunder, into the Maw, into the DD, into the Visage, into the Stone Plate. We have a perfect health to armor and MR ratio going on here. Steel Caps makes you crazy tanky. Sunder gives crazy healing. Maw gives crazy healing, plus a magic shield. And then you have a Death Stance. At 3 items, as long as you're not literally trying to 1v5, you feel pretty much unkillable. And then we have Visage just to finish that off with the Stone Plate as the 6th item. This is another really fun unkillable build. This is the Gore Drinker version. I think overall, Divine Sunder is better, but some people enjoy Gore Drinker because the crazy base stats, the AoE healing. If you hit like 3 to 4 people with this Gore Drinker proc, you probably will end up healing more than Divine Sunder, but overall, I think Divine Sunder heals more. And you'll notice that we stacked out a bit more damage in Armor Pen in the Gore Drinker build, because I feel like it's just fitting, because you want to chase people down with the Serelda's Grudge so you can actually Gore Drinker proc them. Now we got Gore Drinker, Black Cleaver, Titanic Hydra, 3-item health stack, high haste. This is going to make your Q have no cooldown on if you hit above 3 targets with 3 points in it. So you can spam Q on a team. That's really what this build is designed for, is hitting those gigantic Titanic Hydra Qs. And then the ultimate tank item combo to finish it off, Stoneplate Sterix. Now this is an old Korean build right here that I used to have a lot of fun on. I don't play it as much anymore. I mostly play the Divine Sunder build, like I said. But if you just want to absolutely run a squishy champion's day and make it where they can't run from you, this is extremely fun. You take this with either Lethal Tempo, PTA, Hail of Blades, or Conquer. I think the best one is PTA and Lethal Tempo for this. And you can just pretty much one-shot people and run them down. It's great with Ghost also. This is a cheesy build. This is for fun for the most part. I have occasionally built this into Yones because I love one-shotting Yones. But overall, I don't suggest running Prowler Claw unless you're just feeling a bit crazy, which, you know, I like to include the fun, crazy builds. That's just how I am. But you can see why this is really strong. I mean, we jump right onto him, hit him with a Bork Titanic Hydra burst. They're pretty much dead. You got DD to run out and Stoneplate to survive. This is quite the interesting build. This is abusing the durability patch. So I don't know if a lot of you know this, but with the Grievous Wounds nerfs, Lifesteal is actually stronger in extended team fights. So if you want to try this out, run Shield Bow, Bloodthirster, DD Visage, and at 4 items, you are crazy hard to kill. You're going to want Conqueror with this, probably the Lifesteal or Tenacity in the Conqueror tree. Stoneplate to finish it out. You're going to be looking at somewhere around 190 armor MR. Gigantic shield, the overheal shield. You can also take overheal with this build. And you're just a monster. Your Qs will be healing you actually somewhere around 400 once you get the Visage, and around 300 before you get it. This is another HP stack, similar to the AP build with no Demonic Embrace, but we're running Frostfire, Titanic Hydra, Sterax, Force of Nature, and Stoneplate to finish it off. Great balance of health, damage, and tankiness here. Just the right amount, in my opinion. Absolutely unkillable. If you're against an AD laner, make sure to grab Steel Caps. But if not, you can most likely going to want Ionian Boots. Alright, let's move on to the next one. So this is my tank itemization. This is my favorite tank build. Kind of similar to the AP one. But we got Frostfire, Titanic Hydra, Demonic Embrace, Stoneplate Sterax, Crazy tankiness, Nuclear Burst. I might have put this in my AP one, but it's a great starter build. This is definitely my recommended build to try out Shyvana and just have a good time. Run PTA in the main tree, Overgrowth Conditioning in the secondary. I'll have a Rune section, so don't worry. This is a Sunfire Rylise combo. My chat helped me develop this, especially Radic. Big shout out to Radic for helping me develop this specific build. He loves cheesing. I'll show you what he likes to do. He likes to put that there and do that. A bit crazy, but if you feel like having some fun and doing an insane amount of Titanic Hydra damage, you can try that out. But generally, I like to run the Sterix at this point. Probably going to want to look at that order. Here's another Frostfire tank build. There's no Titanic Hydra. Instead, we have the extra shield and then Azanias. This is kind of another hybrid build. This is really powerful late game because your last 3 items are Sterix, Stoneplate, and Azanias. Arguably, in my opinion, the best late game items for a tank. You feel absolutely unkillable, and if you ever ult in, you can press Zanyas, and then after your Zanyas runs out, you Stoneplate, and while you're running away, they can't kill you, even if they're 4-man bursting you because Sterix. We have a huge HP stack right here, Frostfire Warmogs, and then Randuin's Force of Nature to just make your huge amount of health you just built super gold efficient. So these are the best in slot armor and MR tank items, and then we have a Stoneplate to finish it out, and we build as much health as we possibly can early game. Now we have the Sunfire, Titanic Hydra, Demonic Embrace setup, and then Randuin's Force of Nature. You'll probably sell boots for a Stoneplate if you get there. But once again, this is very similar to the starter build. It's just a little bit more DPS oriented, and instead of shield stacking, we end up running Randuin's and Force of Nature. This is if you want to max out resistances, but definitely finish this with a Stone Plate if you get the opportunity. And now for some kind of like off-tank builds. We got Divine Sunder, Black Cleaver, Randuin's, Ma, Stone Plate. Huge amount of Armor MR, Healing, Armor Pen, crazy DPS. The enemy will just be absolutely fucking confused as to what you're building and why. And it's overall a really fun build to test out. And then we have one more off-tank build. We got Gore Drinker, Randuin's, Visage, Stone Plate, Sterex. Visage buffs up these, buffs up the healing. You got a slow from Randuin's, crazy armor and MR, and you'll be absolutely unkillable. But remember guys, if you're new to Shyvana or you haven't tried this build out, definitely try this one out. Really easy to play, super fun. I've absolutely destroyed people. After versing people with this build, they usually add me and they're like, what the fuck is this? Why is Shyvana top so strong? Why do you feel impossible to kill? I actually 1v4'd at one point with just these 3 items when I had a huge lead. And people were asking me in all chat, like, what's going on? So I find that very funny. Alright, guys, let's go on to the runes. Alright, for AP burst runes, you're going to want PTA, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, Coup de Grace. You want Coup de Grace rather than Last Stand because we're bursting them. They are not bursting us. Conditioning Overgrowth secondary because we're not getting that many tank stats. And with a durability patch, getting the tank stats in the runes is really fucking valuable. Let me move my webcam over. I had this set up for the items. There we are. Now we're going to want Ability Haste, Adaptive Force, or Armor, depending on if you're versus a scary AD laner like Riven or Aatrox, you want the Armor. But if you're chilling, take the Adaptive Force, and then Scaling Health. This gives us a crazy late game, crazy early game burst. Really, overall, these runes can work with any build. My favorite rune setup at the moment. Highly recommended. Now for our other one, we have AD Healing. This is for those Sundera builds. Those builds where I get like Ma, Sunder, Visage, or the ones where I stack a lot of Lifesteal like Bloodthirster, Shield Bow. We end up going for Conqueror, right? And pretty much everything else is the same. Conditioning Overgrowth, the usual, but we also take Last Stand. This is because it's really hard to kill you, and you want to make as much use as possible of your stacked Conqueror. Finally, for the tank runes. Now, these are great runes. This is if you just want to chill, have a good time in lane, and be an absolutely unkillable healing monster. Frostfire scales really well with Grasp. It works with Conditioning, Overgrowth, and we have Demolish when the enemy forgets that they actually have to defend their tower. The thing that is different with this, because we have Conditioning and Overgrowth already, we want to try taking some Transcendence and Nimbus Cloak. And also, if the enemy's high CC, you're going to want to swap over to Unflinching. Tenacity is very valuable, but if not much CC, just stick with the Overgrowth. But Transcendence is really valuable because as a tank, you're going to want to make really good... you're going to get as much gold value over an extended fight as possible. And when you are in a really long fight, having low cooldowns is super, super powerful. Because say you throw out 4 E's instead of 3, well, when you're low damage, you're actually going to be in a situation where you'll be throwing out 4 E's more often. Well, if in my full AP build, I'll probably kill them at 3 E's. But when I'm tank, it's going to take somewhere around 4.5 if it's late game and 2 tanks beating each other to death. So this is where this stuff really comes in handy. Alright, thanks so much guys. I appreciate everything. And yeah, hope you enjoyed.